In a modern city on a very sunny day, a large office building stood tall. Inside, the protagonist was hard at work, his fingers typing away at the keyboard. As he immersed himself in his tasks, he found his mind wandering to a strange event from the previous night. He tried to recollect exactly what had occurred. Suddenly, memories rushed back to him. A blue screen had startled him when it appeared out of nowhere in his room. He wondered if he was merely seeing things, captivated by a floating shop window. Intrigued, he attempted to purchase a tunic quin but quickly realized he lacked the necessary coins. Soon after, an image of a hammer designed for smashing zombie skulls caught his attention, priced at 5 coins. This vision frightened him as he imagined several zombies approaching, sending a wave of worry crashing over him. Back in the office, the protagonist pushed these unsettling thoughts aside, attributing them to tiredness and exhaustion. Just then, his furious manager stormed into the room, calling his name with an intensity that commanded immediate attention. The boss approached the young man, demanding if he had been daydreaming again. With a forceful slam of his hand on the desk, he insisted that the employee focus and inquired whether last week's work had been completed. The protagonist was aware that the issue lay with the other company, which had failed to prepare the necessary documents. Frustrated, he regarded his manager as incompetent, recognizing that he was merely performing for the benefit of others. When the manager became annoyed by the lack of response, he glared at the young man with an angry expression and shouted whether the employee intended to continue disregarding him. Suddenly, a female voice called out to the manager, causing him to transform instantly. A beautiful coworker approached, offering him a drink and suggesting he cheer up. His anger dissipated, replaced by a goofy smile at the sight of her. Seizing the opportunity, he grabbed her hand and invited her to dinner after work, completely forgetting about the earlier argument. The manager continued to shower her with praise, insisting it would be a waste for her to leave looking so beautiful. Although she offered an awkward smile, she politely declined his invitation, explaining that she already had other plans for the day. The manager, accepting her response, suggested they could share a drink another time, while the woman agreed with a nod. Once the manager walked away, the woman let out a sigh of relief, relieved to have escaped the uncomfortable situation. Seeing her reaction, the protagonist expressed his gratitude for her help, to which she turned, offering a slight smile. Lost in thought, he gazed at the sky, contemplating how much he would like to go home at that moment. Outside, as he stood on the rooftop smoking, anger bubbled within him regarding his boss and the situation at work. He lamented not being able to leave the company, recognizing that finding a new job would be an arduous task. Reflecting on the assistance he had received, he decided he would buy the woman a coffee later. Just then, she appeared on the rooftop, surprising him. Wondering what had brought her up there since she didn't smoke, he asked. She explained that she had come to escape the annoying manager for a while. She mentioned that a client had disappeared and that her boss was venting his frustrations on everyone while continuing to ask her out. Suddenly, she shivered, commenting that the day had turned a bit cold, leaving the guy puzzled by her reaction. The woman insisted it wasn't normal and showed her goosebumps, even though she was wearing long sleeves. He laughed and said she must be sensitive to the cold, but she pulled out her phone to prove her point. She showed him a social media post displaying snow in Africa. The protagonist was shocked by the news and wondered if it was even real. She agreed it was strange, and at that moment, both of their phones began vibrating with an alert. It was a cold wave warning in the middle of summer, and shortly after, another emergency notification arrived. They read the alert, which warned of a sudden cold wave and a sharp drop in temperature. They both thought it must be a mistake. A cold wave warning in June made no sense at all. Suddenly, a small snowflake gently fell onto the protagonist's outstretched hand. His colleague complained about the cold while he stared at the snow in his palm. Completely shocked, they both looked up at the sky and were surprised to realize it was actually snowing in the middle of summer. By nightfall, the once sunny city was now completely covered in snow. Back in the office, he drank something warm and thought the world had finally gone crazy. Feeling it get even colder, he decided to pack his things and head home right away. When he reached the elevator, he saw the panel displayed the 6th floor, so he called it to go down. However, the elevator didn't move when he pressed the button again, leaving him to wonder if it was broken. Suddenly, a blast of icy wind hit him, making him hug himself and complain about the cold. With the status window in his head, he decided to take the stairs to leave quickly. As he descended, he kept grumbling about the cold and the strange weather. Nearing his floor, he heard the sound of the elevator doors closing behind him. Turning around, he saw that the doors were open and wondered if the elevator wasn't broken after all. The doors continued to open and close on their own, and he found the eerie silence of the place unsettling. Suddenly, all the lights went out, plunging the hallway into darkness, which made him very nervous. Recognizing the situation was dangerous, he decided to forget about his belongings and just get out of there as fast as possible. Soon after, he heard a strange sound of scraping metal coming from inside the office, sending chills down his spine. Determined to grab his things and escape, he cautiously entered the dark office. The silence struck him as odd. There had been more people there before he went to the rooftop. Arriving at his desk, he found it messy and wondered what had happened. The office looked like it had been abandoned in a hurry, so he called out for someone. The strange noise from before and the disarray filled him with a sense of dread. Compelled to leave as quickly as possible, he grabbed his backpack to finally go home. At that moment, a shadowy figure appeared on the wall behind him. Startled by the sudden presence, he quickly turned around to see who was there. Looking toward the meeting room, he felt an unsettling sensation that something was inside. As he walked toward it, he stepped on something on the floor and realized it was a dirty ID badge. He took a step back, examining the identification card on the floor with curiosity. When he picked up the badge, he saw it was smeared with red liquid and belonged to a colleague. Frightened by what he found, he stumbled backward and wondered what had happened there. Desperate, he started crawling away from the meeting room in great fear. His eyes widened in terror as he stared intently at the door. Very cautiously, he peeked through the blinds to try and see what was happening inside. In the dark room, he could only see a pair of glowing red eyes shining brightly. The creature inside was crouched on the floor, seemingly feeding on something. Completely terrified by the scene, he could hardly believe what he was witnessing. The creature lifted its head, revealing a mouthful of red liquid and sharp teeth. To his horror, he realized that the creature was one of his transformed coworkers. As their eyes met, panic surged through him, and he began to run away. The monster leaped over the desks in pursuit, violently knocking the protagonist to the floor. Fallen and scared, he couldn't believe he was face to face with a real zombie. The creature lunged at him, but he managed to dodge the attack by mere inches. Terrified by the situation, he wondered what kind of horrifying creature this was. Looking for a way out, he glanced around and quickly grabbed a chair to defend himself. With all his strength, he lifted the chair high and prepared to strike the monster. In an act of desperation, he swung the chair at the zombie's head with a powerful blow. The impact sent the creature flying, and he seized the chance to escape. Running for his life, adrenaline and fear coursed through his veins. To his dismay, the monster quickly got back up and began to chase him again, even faster. Spying a nearby door, he ran to it and slammed it shut to protect himself from the creature. The zombie began pounding on the door violently, trying to break it down. Using his full weight, the protagonist struggled to keep the door closed. Hearing the frightening sounds from the other side, he was completely frozen with fear. Suddenly, the noise stopped, and he saw the zombie slowly walking away down the dark hallway. With trembling hands, he continued to hold the door, still in disbelief about what had just happened. Relieved, he slid down the wall and sat on the floor, trying to catch his breath. Still in shock, he stammered to himself that it was definitely a zombie. Just then, his phone vibrated, displaying an emergency alert about a virus spreading through the city. Confused by the news about rabies, he ran a hand through his hair and complained about the whole situation. He remembered the creature he had seen and was sure it was a zombie, not just rabies. Sitting on the floor, he picked up his phone to search for news and understand what was happening. Browsing a forum, he saw several reports of people being attacked and warnings about the world ending. Realizing the chaos, he wondered if this might be related to yesterday's status window. He searched for information about the window but found no results and ultimately dismissed the idea. Suddenly, his phone screen began to glitch, the image becoming completely distorted. He stared at the device, confused about what was happening to his phone. Soon after, a message appeared on the screen, informing him that the connection had been lost. Desperate due to the lack of communication, he pondered what he should do now. Putting his hands on his face, he realized he was in a very difficult situation. Shivering from the cold, he felt his teeth chattering and complained about the low temperature in the place. Huddled on the stairs, he feared he would freeze before the zombies even got to him. Standing up, the young man decided he needed to hold on until a rescue team showed up. Checking his phone, he noticed the battery was at 83%, which should last for 2 days. With a determined look, he glanced upward and prepared to explore the building. Using his phone's flashlight to light the way, he began climbing the stairs. Upon reaching the 7th floor, he discovered it housed the building's construction team. He entered the empty floor, hoping to find clothes or food to survive. He started searching through the drawers, hoping to find something useful for his situation. In one of the drawers, he found a clean, neatly folded dress shirt that he could wear. After changing his clothes, he felt much better and warmer to continue exploring. Now, his focus shifted to finding food, so he continued to search the floor's cabinets. With a smile on his face, he celebrated discovering a backpack full of supplies. Inside, he found food, water, and even a blanket to keep warm. He silently thanked the unknown owner of the bag and slung it over his shoulders, ready for whatever came next. With his supplies secured, he now needed to find a weapon to defend himself. Approaching a door, he was surprised to find a set of golf clubs. With an ironic smile, he realized his boss's golf clubs might come in handy. He hung the bag and clubs on the staircase and prepared to wait out the night. Wrapped in the blanket, he wondered if the food would last for 3 days and whether rescue would arrive. Looking out the window, he saw the snow falling outside and felt concern for his situation. The streets were in chaos, with cars exploding and hordes of zombies everywhere. The blizzard was so intense that he knew it would be difficult for a rescue helicopter to reach him. Worried, he sat on the floor and contemplated what he would do if rescue took a week. The cold grew worse, and he huddled deeper into the blanket, trying to stay warm. Suddenly, the status window he had seen before reappeared before him. He remembered that the shop had winter clothes and thought those would be very useful now. As he looked at the items in the shop, he wondered how on earth he could obtain coins. Focused on the blue screen, he attempted to figure out a way to earn coins to buy the items. With no clues coming to mind, he lowered his head and tried to think of a solution to this problem. As the snow continued to fall outside, he huddled in his blanket, feeling the cold intensify. Suddenly, he heard approaching footsteps and quickly got up to investigate the source. The sound seemed to be coming from the emergency exit door, so he prepared for a possible attack. The noise gradually grew louder, and he realized something was trying to open the door. With his heart racing, the young man prepared for the worst and gripped his golf club tightly. He threw off the blanket and positioned himself to attack, thinking it was another monster. The doorknob started to turn slowly, indicating that the door was about to open at any moment. Holding the club with both hands, he raised it above his head, ready to strike. As soon as the door opened, the young man didn't hesitate and launched an attack with all his strength. At the last second, a person ran in and narrowly dodged the blow. With no time to think, he prepared to attack again, golf club in hand. The man shielded himself with his arms and desperately yelled for him to stop the attack. Surprised, he recognized the person as a coworker and slowly lowered his weapon. It was the annoying guy from the sales team, and he felt a wave of disappointment. The man explained that he had been in the break room when he heard knocking on the door from outside. He bragged about being smart and locking the door from the inside to protect himself. The protagonist retorted that he had just opened the door and run inside, making his colleague think it was easy. Not caring about the story, the man got his attention and pointed to his own hand. He then asked if the protagonist had any food, as he was very hungry. Taken aback, the young man denied having any food, thinking he couldn't share his emergency supplies. He decided to offer only water, and the man thanked him while watching him strangely. Suddenly, the colleague grabbed the protagonist's wrist and held the bottle tightly, his desperate look alarming the young man. He asked if the young man was sure there was nothing else to eat. Sensing something was very wrong with his companion, the protagonist began to fill the bottle, his unease growing. He couldn't help but notice that the man was sweating profusely despite the intense cold. Out of nowhere, the man transformed into a monster and lunged to attack the protagonist by surprise. The creature grabbed him and threw him violently to the ground, putting the young man in a dangerous situation. In a swift move, he managed to hit the zombie's face with the metal bottle he was holding. Seizing the opportunity, he grabbed the golf club and prepared to finish the creature off for good. With all his strength, the young man landed a powerful blow on the monster's head, and it fell to the ground. However, even on the ground and injured, the zombie continued to growl and writhe in a frightening way. Realizing that the threat was not yet neutralized, he held the club firmly for another decisive strike. Determined to survive, he struck the monster several times without mercy. The attack was brutal, and he kept hitting until he was certain the threat had been completely eliminated. When he finally stopped attacking the zombie on the floor, ensuring it wouldn't get up again, he observed the result of his terrifying actions. Completely exhausted and shocked, he tried to catch his breath after the intense fight. At that moment, the status window appeared in front of him, showing that he had earned 1 coin from the battle. Noticing the connection, he opened the shop and saw that he now had 1 coin in his inventory. Looking at the items, he finally understood that he needed to eliminate zombies to earn coins. Annoyed, he realized he had risked his life for just 1 measly coin and felt frustration build within him. With a serious look, he analyzed the zombie's body on the floor, trying to comprehend what had just happened. Approaching carefully, he investigated the body to see if he could find any clues. He then noticed a bite mark on the man's arm and understood how he had gotten infected. Kneeling on the floor, he sighed with relief and mourned the loss of his former colleague. He went back to the office and sat down to rest and process everything that had happened. Lighting a cigarette, he thought about how he couldn't trust anyone anymore in this situation. He found a pack of cigarettes and put it in his bag for later. Suddenly, he heard screams from outside and got up to see what was happening. Looking out the window, he observed a horrific scene unfolding on the city streets. A survivor was bravely fighting off a horde of hungry zombies with a bat. Unfortunately, he was quickly surrounded by the monsters and overpowered by their sheer numbers. In no time, the man was completely overwhelmed by the zombies, with no chance of escape. The creature that had attacked him turned around, revealing its now disfigured and terrifying face. Frightened by the scene, he stepped away from the window and returned to the office. He sat in a chair and lamented the terrible situation he found himself in. Looking at the snow falling outside, he prepared for another long night of survival. Lying on a table, the protagonist tried to get some rest in the dark, cold office. By the third day, his phone battery was down to only 3%, and worry crept in. With only a few snacks left, he had spent his time conserving energy and watching from the window. During this time, he had seen several people trying to escape, but they all ended up turning into zombies. Despite everything, he concluded that he needed to make a move and started packing his gear to leave. Staying put would only bring him closer to the end, so he resolved to find other survivors. With his backpack and weapons ready, he set out, determined to find someone to team up with and get out of the building. His first goal was the 6th floor to check if the entrance was really blocked as they had said. As he walked down the hall, he suddenly noticed something unexpected and stopped in surprise. With a glimmer of hope in his eyes, he saw a light and realized what it meant. Excited by the discovery, he began running through the office toward the light he had seen in the distance. Reaching the window, he looked outside, but his joyful expression soon vanished. The landscape remained the same, with all the city buildings covered in a blanket of snow. His eyes reflected the desolation of the city as he pondered what to do next to survive. He felt disappointed to see it was still dark outside, causing his hopes to diminish slightly. However, the lights were on, so he concluded that someone must have turned on the emergency generator. This confirmed his suspicions, and now he was certain there was another survivor in the building. Knowing the lights could go out at any moment, he needed to act swiftly to find the other survivor before the power ran out and everything went dark again. He figured the person was on the first floor and started heading down the stairs carefully. To avoid making noise, he took off his shoes and tied them around his neck. He descended the stairs silently, believing this was better than attracting hungry zombies. Arriving on the 6th floor, he approached the door to check the situation on the other side. Very cautiously, he peeked through the crack in the door to take a quick look down the hallway. He saw that the entrance was blocked by heavy equipment, exactly as he had imagined. Excited by this discovery, he believed there might be more survivors than he had thought. The emergency exit sign pointed toward the 2nd and 1st floors of the building. He approached the lobby door, imagining there must be a lot of zombies nearby. Taking a deep breath, he slowly turned the doorknob and prepared for what he might find. Peeking through the gap in the door, he hoped not to encounter any creatures on the other side. Unfortunately for him, the lobby was completely infested with zombies, and the situation was very dangerous. The creatures were everywhere, and he realized that getting out of the building would be an impossible task. Surprised by their number, he saw an entire horde of zombies wandering around the 1st floor. Feeling relieved, he closed the door and realized the zombies from outside hadn't managed to get in yet. He could hear the creatures banging on the glass door, and he feared it could break at any moment. With no time to waste, he ran down the hall to find the other survivor as fast as he could. Reaching the management office, he found the door open and entered cautiously. Inside, he discovered a frozen man and recognized him as the building's security guard. The young man remembered how the guard would take off his clothes due to severe hypothermia. With respect, he closed the deceased man's eyes and said goodbye to someone he had seen every morning. With his golf club in hand, he bid farewell to the security guard and wished him to rest in peace. Not wanting to lose any more time, he returned to the hallway and continued his search for the other survivor. The only place left to check was the security room, so he was sure someone was in there. As he approached the door, he imagined there might be traps set to protect against intruders. With a determined look, he realized he needed to show that he was not a zombie or a threat. Outside, a zombie convulsed bizarrely while making scary sounds in the hallway. Another monster approached and began screaming loudly, attracting the attention of other creatures. Knowing they had good hearing, he knocked on the door to get the attention of whoever was inside. With his breath held, he prepared to open the door very carefully and attentively. As the door cracked open, he was surprised by a quick and unexpected attack from inside the room. An improvised spear came toward him, but he managed to block the blow with his golf club. Surprised by the attack, he recognized the sound of the spear and understood what was happening. The other survivor also seemed shocked to see that he had attacked a human and not a monster. In the distance, a zombie heard the noise of the fight and started moving toward the security room. The young man backed away from the door and prepared to attack again if he needed to defend himself. In a swift move, he managed to disarm the guy and pin him to the floor. After disarming him, he threw the man to the ground to show he was not a threat. Taking advantage of the distraction, the protagonist pushed the other guy into the room and quickly closed the door. He locked it to ensure the zombies couldn't get inside. Now safe, the two survivors faced each other, ready to find out more about one another. The man asked if he was human, and the protagonist confirmed it while both eyed each other suspiciously. He explained that he had come because of the generator, and the other survivor immediately understood the situation. To identify himself, he showed his ID badge and introduced himself as the assistant manager of the sales team. The young man introduced himself as well, but he couldn't shake the worry about the possibility of the man being infected. He analyzed the guy and noticed that he wasn't sweating and seemed to feel the cold just like him. The two continued to stare at each other, and the protagonist tried to think of a plan for the situation. The other man noticed the backpack on the young man's back and stared at him with a curious, attentive gaze. With the improvised weapon still in hand, he remained on the defensive, ready for any move. The protagonist noticed that the other wasn't hungry and concluded that he was likely not infected. He tried to get closer, but the man backed away, making him even more suspicious of his actions. The protagonist realized he had made the man tense and now needed to find a way to break the ice. With an idea in mind, he dropped his golf club and took the pack of cigarettes from his bag. The other man watched his movements carefully and remained on guard, not letting his defenses down. Our hero showed his hands to prove he didn't want to fight and attempted to calm the mood. He remembered that smoking together could help people relax and decided to offer a cigarette. The other man looked at the cigarette and then back at him with a doubtful expression. The protagonist took out the pack of cigarettes and extended it to the man as a gesture of friendship and trust. With a smile, he offered a cigarette, hoping the other would accept so they could talk. The man accepted the cigarette, looking at him with a serious but now slightly more relaxed expression. Still holding his weapon, he seemed calmer, and the two could finally begin to understand each other. After a moment of contemplation, the man decided to accept the confident protagonist's offer. He took the cigarette and asked for one to smoke while putting his improvised weapon on the floor. Our hero put out his cigarette on the table, and the two finally started to relax a bit. The other guy said he felt alive again, and the protagonist agreed with a smile. Suddenly, the man's stomach rolled, and he became embarrassed by the unusual situation. He explained that he had only eaten half a chocolate bar, and the young man decided to help him with that. The protagonist figured he must have gotten food from the break room on this floor. The man opened his backpack and showed some instant noodles, breaking them in half. He offered half to the protagonist and advised him to chew it well to avoid getting sick. The two ate together, and the protagonist asked if he had cleared out the entire second floor. The man confirmed it and mentioned that he no longer needed to worry about storing food in the fridge. With his mouth full of noodles, the protagonist continued the conversation with his new companion. Now calmer, they sat down to talk and better understand each other's situation. The protagonist asked how the situation was on the second floor, and the man said it wasn't good. He explained that he had been trapped in the break room with a colleague, and they had shared the food, but his colleague insisted on leaving while he thought it was better to wait for rescue. In the end, the colleague left and was infected as soon as he opened the break room door. Our hero commented that there seemed to be a lot of zombies, and the man confirmed he had seen 4 of them. He had only left because his battery was dying and he needed to find a way out soon. The man explained that he had distracted the zombies and crawled out to escape. Our hero praised him for making it out alive from 4 zombies, and the man appreciated the compliment. He then asked if the other guy had been the one who turned on the generator, and the man confirmed it. Noticing a power strip, he realized the power had been turned on to charge something. The man with glasses asked if the phone was still useful, and our protagonist looked at him, confused. The other was surprised and asked if he had survived all this time without using the internet. Our hero replied that there was no signal, but the man revealed that satellite internet was working. Shocked by the news, the protagonist remembered the company Spacelink and confirmed he knew it well. The man explained that there were still servers running in some online communities. He offered to charge the protagonist's phone and invited him to sit down. As the phone started charging, he was finally able to connect with the world. He saw posts from other survivors and realized that the internet was indeed functioning. Grateful, he turned to the man and thanked him for all the help he had provided. The two remained silent for a while, observing their surroundings with great attention and calm. Suddenly, the light starts to flicker and they look up, worried about the situation. The man with glasses warns that the emergency generator is about to run out of power. He then asks what our protagonist plans to do next, and looks at him seriously. The guy says he's going to stay there and our hero realizes he wants him to leave. He understands he's a burden to the other who just wants to protect himself and save food. Our protagonist agrees that they aren't ideal partners at the moment. With a determined look, the two face each other and decide it's best for each to go their own way. Our hero decides to leave because he knows he would be an obstacle for the other survivor. The man with glasses understands the decision and agrees to the two survivors separating. Before leaving, the man takes something from his backpack and turns to our protagonist. He offers a flashlight and a portable charger as a farewell gift to the guy. Surprised and grateful, our hero accepts the items, knowing they will be very useful. In return, he offers a lighter, and the man thanks him for the unexpected gift. The two say their goodbyes, and our protagonist prepares to go on his way alone. With a smile, he turns and waves goodbye to the other survivor with a friendly gesture. The man wishes him good luck, and the two part ways, hoping to meet again. Our hero says goodbye and hopes they see each other again alive and well in the future. He hurries to leave before the power goes out and everything in the building goes dark again. Looking at the lobby door, he sees the zombies are still trying to get into the place. With his golf club in hand, he prepares to explore the rest of the building alone. He goes down the stairs and decides to head to the basement to get the company car and escape. The parking lot is full of cars and he realizes he can use one of them to get away. However, he wonders if leaving now is the best choice or a hasty decision. For now, he decides to go back up and gather more information before trying to flee the building. He climbs the stairs, determined to explore and find a safe way out of the place. Suddenly, the lights go out and the hallway is plunged into total darkness again. Calmly, he takes out the flashlight he received and prepares to continue his journey in the dark. With the flashlight in hand, he illuminates the dark hallway and gets ready to go up the stairs. He moves slowly and carefully, knowing the zombies might have moved to a different spot. Going up the stairs, he passes the 4th and 5th floors with great attention and caution. As the flashlight lights his way, he hears a strange noise from above and stops. He realizes there's someone on the floor above and the probability of it being a zombie is high. With the golf club in hand, he prepares to face whatever is up there. Determined to survive, he decides to move forward and break any obstacle in his path. He leaves his bag and flashlight on the floor so he can fight with more freedom and agility. Suddenly, a zombie appears at the top of the stairs and starts coming down toward him slowly. Relieved, he notices the monster has its back to him and he might be able to slip by unnoticed. Silently, he climbs the steps, taking the chance to pass by the creature without being seen. However, the zombie turns and attacks him by surprise with a quick and unexpected blow. The creature attacks him fiercely, but he manages to defend himself from the blow with his golf club. Startled by the sudden attack, he prepares to fight back and fight for his life. The zombie leaps at him, but our hero hits it with the club, sending it flying. With a direct hit, he strikes the monster's head with all his strength and determination. The impact sends the creature flying into the wall with a loud and frightening sound. The zombie screams in pain, but our protagonist doesn't stop and prepares for the final blow. With a battle cry, he attacks the monster with another powerful and definitive strike. The zombie falls to the floor, and our hero finally manages to neutralize the threat and breathe. With the zombie's body on the floor, he can finally breathe a sigh of relief and rest. With his heart racing, he wonders if the fight is finally over and if he's safe. Unfortunately for him, the zombie started to move again, and he realized it wasn't over yet. He struck the creature one more time with all his strength to finally finish it. After the blow, the status window appeared, and he earned one more coin for winning the fight. The blue screen shattered, and he realized the head of the golf club had also broken. He picked up the broken piece and decided to keep it, as it might be useful in another situation. With the flashlight in hand, he investigated the body and wondered where that zombie had come from. He checked the rooftop door and saw it was closed, so the monster must have come from somewhere else. Worried, he realized the 7th floor might no longer be a safe place to stay. He returned to the office and checked if the area was still secure and free of any threats. Relieved, he took a deep breath and prepared to rest a bit after the intense fight. He drank some water to calm down and thought about the speed of the zombie he had just faced. The creature had been much faster than a normal human and had seemed like a wild animal attacking. He realized that if there had been 2 zombies, he would have perished, and he needed to find allies soon. He grabbed his phone and decided to check the internet for more information about the zombies. In the survivors gallery, he saw hundreds of posts from people all over the country. He read accounts of the temperature dropping and the difficulty of finding safe drinking water. Unfortunately, there wasn't much new information about the zombies and their weaknesses at that moment. He summarized what he knew, remembering they were sensitive to sound and had poor sight and smell. He understood that he could only stop them by destroying their heads and that a bite was fatal. Frustrated, he realized the internet was just full of people asking for rescue and no real help. This led him to a terrible conclusion. He realized the government had collapsed. Devastated, he understood that no one was coming to save him and that he was on his own now. Suddenly, he sneezed and felt his body shivering with cold and weakness in the office. On the 5th day of survival, he realized he was about to catch a cold. He knew that getting sick now meant the end, and he needed to find a solution quickly. To warm up, he started doing exercises to generate heat with his own body. His stomach rumbled with hunger, and he decided to eat a chocolate bar to replenish his energy. He consumed the entire bar, knowing he needed calories to survive the cold. After eating, he prepared to go out in search of more food and essential supplies. He decided to leave his shoes behind to make less noise and avoid attracting zombies. He remembered there was still food in the development team's break room. The problem was that the zombie colleague had the backpack, and there were more monsters around. He hid and observed the dark office infested with hungry zombies. He noticed the zombie colleague was still wandering around the office with the backpack on. Our hero knew the only way forward was to eliminate the zombies one by one and retrieve the backpack. He watched the monsters moving and planned a strategy to attack without being noticed. The first zombie was near the door, and he prepared to attack the creature by surprise. He approached carefully and readied himself for the first confrontation in the dark office. He counted the zombies and realized there was one more somewhere in the office. Confused, he wondered where the last zombie was and if it hadn't transformed. He needed tools to fight but was aware of an unknown zombie nearby. With the flashlight, he peeked through the door's window and saw that the break room was empty. He entered carefully, prepared for any surprise attack from a monster. The room was dark, and he used the flashlight to search for supplies and tools. With a smile, he saw that the supplies were still there, and he could take what he needed. Suddenly, he heard approaching footsteps and quickly hid to avoid being seen. With a determined look, he prepared to put his plan into action and lure the zombies. He used a cup to make noise and attract the attention of the creatures on the other side. The cup fell to the floor, and the sound drew a zombie that approached to investigate the source. As the creature got closer, our hero prepared to attack it by surprise. The zombie entered the room, and he struck its head hard, neutralizing it before it could react. With a smile, he celebrated his victory and readied himself for the next step of his plan. Suddenly, he heard more zombies approaching and saw them trying to break down the door. The creatures pounded on the door violently, and our hero needed to act fast to escape. He glanced in the mirror and saw the reflection of the zombies trying to get into the break room. He quickly locked the door and celebrated that his plan had worked exactly as he imagined. With the zombies trapped, he could finally grab the backpack with the food and supplies. With the flashlight in his mouth, he savored his victory and prepared for the next zombie. Just then, a zombie grabbed him by the leg and pulled him to the ground with great force. The creature held him tightly, and our hero realized he was in trouble again. The monster opened its mouth to bite him, but he managed to defend himself just in time. He shoved the flashlight into the zombie's mouth to prevent it from biting his arm. With the flashlight holding the monster's mouth open, he bought himself some time to think of a plan. The creature struggled to bite the flashlight but couldn't, and our hero prepared to fight back. He tossed the flashlight into the air and landed a powerful punch to the zombie's face. The blow sent the creature flying, and he got ready for the next attack. With the golf club in hand, he finished off the zombie with a strong and precise strike. His eyes gleamed with determination as he prepared to face the other monsters. He didn't stop and continued to fight fiercely to survive in the dark office. After the fight, he rested briefly, trying to recover from the intense and tiring confrontation. Exhausted, he ran a hand through his hair and realized there were still more zombies to face. He looked in the mirror and saw the bloody handprints of the zombies on the other side. With 2 more zombies to confront, he prepared for the next round of the fight. He picked up his flashlight and got ready to finish off the monsters once and for all. With the flashlight in his mouth, he needed to end the fight before more zombies showed up. He lured the last 2 zombies into the room and prepared for the final showdown. The 2 monsters entered the room, and he braced himself to fight both at once. He threw the broken piece of the golf club, and one of the zombies became distracted by the object. The other monster attacked him, but he managed to dodge and prepare for a counterattack. He used the flashlight to blind the zombie and bought time to attack the other creature. With the first zombie blinded, he prepared to tackle the colleague with the backpack of supplies. The creature recovered and lunged at him, but he dodged its attack and grabbed an object from the floor. With the piece of the club in hand, he struck the zombie with a swift and precise blow, finishing it off before turning to face the last monster in the office. The final zombie attacked, but he defended himself and struck it with the broken club. The status window appeared, awarding him 4 coins for his victory in the intense fight. He grabbed the backpack from the zombie colleague and noticed it was quite heavy with supplies. Now without a weapon, he decided to look for more supplies and tools in the office. He began searching through desks and drawers for anything useful for his survival. In one of the drawers, he found a portable charger and nutritional supplements. With a smile, he celebrated his luck and put the new items in his backpack. Excited by the discovery, he decided to search the development team's area as well. He entered the room and started looking for more useful supplies and tools. The guy managed to find a few things that would help him move forward. Happy with the result, he discovered a charger and several supplements. With a full backpack and a flashlight in hand, he prepared for his next journey. He walked through the office, now aiming to explore another part of the building. Suddenly, he remembered the last zombie and worried about the possibility of an attack. Without a weapon, he knew he was in danger and decided to leave the office as quickly as possible. He ran through the dark hallway and stepped on something on the floor, leaving a bloody mark. With the backpack in his arms, he finally managed to calm down and breathed a sigh of relief in the area. He laughed at the thought that he felt safe in the office despite the chaotic situation outside. Tired, he hugged the backpack and allowed himself to rest a bit after so much stress. He decided to check what he had managed to gather in the backpack and prepared to organize his items. Inside, he found chips, chocolate pies, cookies, and instant noodles. With a huge smile, he celebrated his luck and felt grateful for finding so much food. With these supplies, he knew he could survive for a month if he had drinking water. As the adrenaline wore off, he started to feel cold and shiver in the dark, chilly office. His wet feet worsened the situation, and he decided to wash up a bit to warm himself. He washed his feet with the icy water and complained about the intense cold he felt in his body. Suddenly, he noticed a wound on his foot and worried about the possibility of infection. Shocked, he wondered if he had been scratched by a zombie during the intense fight earlier. He remembered he hadn't been bitten and tried to calm himself to avoid panicking in the situation. With his phone in hand, he researched infections and whether scratches could transform him. He found a post from another survivor who had been scratched and didn't transform. Relieved, he read that only bites could turn people into hungry zombies. With this reassurance, he could finally relax and prepare for the next day. Happy that he wasn't infected, he celebrated the news and felt much more at ease. He put his phone away and got up to continue his journey in the dark, cold office. However, the problem now was the cold, and he needed to find a way to warm up. He tore up a blanket but realized his feet were still freezing and he needed to warm them quickly. With the status window in front of him, he opened the shop to see if there was anything useful. He searched for winter clothes and found several options to protect himself from the cold. The shop offered clothes, boots, gloves, and winter hats, all costing 3 coins each. Frustrated, he complained that the items were sold separately and at such a high price. With no choice, he decided to buy the boots to protect his feet from the intense cold of the place. The boots appeared before him, and he marveled at the magic of the status window. He picked up the boots and tried them on, curious to see if they would fit. They fit perfectly, and he realized the items were customized for him. However, he knew the boots alone wouldn't solve his cold predicament, and he needed something more. He searched for more options in the shop but couldn't find anything that would help him in this situation. With a determined look, he continued to search for something that might resolve his problem. Suddenly, he found a mysterious item in the shop and decided to buy it to see what it was. He pressed the purchase button and spent one of his coins to acquire the new item. A pair of sweatpants appeared before him, and he was confused by the unexpected purchase. However, he used a heat patch from the pants and felt a little more alive and warm. With his feet warm and feeling a bit more comfortable, he prepared for the next challenge. He complained about the price but knew the heat patch was essential for his survival. With the patch on his feet, he felt immediate relief and managed to warm up a bit. Smiling, he felt alive again and ready to face whatever came next. Sitting by the window, he watched the snow fall and prepared for another day of struggle. On the 7th day, he went to the sink and realized the water had been cut off in the building. Preparing for the worst, he filled his bottles with whatever water was left in the tap. With about 2 liters of water, he understood he only had enough for a few more days. Lying on the floor, he despaired, realizing the water had run out just when he had started to feel better. He picked up his phone and saw that others were also reporting the water outage. In a post, a survivor mentioned he was going out to look for a nearby supermarket. Other people asked if he had gone, and the man confirmed he was on his way and would post updates if he made it. Seeing the post, he noticed the number of new publications was decreasing every day. With a sad look, he concluded that most survivors probably hadn't made it. Looking out the window, he could barely see any signs of life and felt increasingly alone. He tried to stay optimistic and believed there were still other survivors out there. On the 8th day, he checked the post from the man who had gone out and saw there was no reply. With hope dwindling, he realized he could no longer sit around waiting for a miracle. He gazed out at the snow-covered city and knew he needed to act if he wanted to survive. With a determined look, he got up and prepared to go out in search of a way forward. With limited food and water, he understood he couldn't wait any longer and needed to risk it all. He knew that going out alone was a death sentence and that he needed to find an ally to survive. The problem was that he needed a weapon to move around safely and look for other survivors. He only had a golf club, which wasn't very durable and broke easily against the zombies. The shop offered a hammer for taking down zombies, but it cost a pricey 5 coins. With 5 coins, he could buy winter clothes and a heat patch to stay warm. He decided to explore the other floors for supplies and weapons before spending his coins. On the 4th floor, he entered an office and braced himself for what he might find inside. He was confused to see the empty office and wondered what had happened to the people there. With his flashlight, he illuminated the area and realized there was no one present, everything was silent. He noticed blood stains on the desks and keyboards and began to feel suspicious. Besides the stains, he smelled a strange odor in the air and recognized it as the scent of zombies. He didn't understand where the bodies were or what had transpired in the abandoned office. He tried to open a door, but it was locked from the inside, and he couldn't get in. Surprised, he wondered if someone was hiding in there but didn't hear any noise. Suspicious, he prepared to break down the door to discover what was on the other side. With his golf club, he struck the door's doorknob hard and managed to break the lock. Announcing that he was coming in, he readied himself to face whatever was inside. With a strong kick, he opened the door and entered the dark room with his club in hand. The door swung open, and he stepped inside to investigate the mystery. He saw several cabinets and drawers and got ready to search for supplies and clues. Shocked, he turned around and saw a pile of zombie bodies in the corner of the dark room. He counted at least 10 bodies and wondered who had been able to eliminate so many monsters. With a curious look, he speculated whether someone strong had been in his company. He realized the place had been searched and that there was nothing useful left for him. Frustrated, he realized that someone had already cleared the floor and taken all the supplies. He wondered who had been so thorough as to take everything from the abandoned office. As he searched, he found a mug and noticed a note left by the other survivor. The note explained that the survivor had cleared the floor and piled the bodies in the room. He read that the other survivor had left his shirt and warned him to avoid the 5th floor. The note revealed that the man was heading to the west coast to stay safe from the zombies. Regretting having missed the chance to find an ally by just one day, the survivor identified himself as a colleague from the accounting team and a former Special Forces member. On the back of the note, he discovered a PS mentioning a gift left in the drawer. Excited, he opened the drawer and found 2 coffee packets as a farewell gift. With an ironic smile, he realized that the gift wasn't particularly useful but appreciated the gesture nonetheless. On the 10th day, he ate a chocolate bar and reread the note from the other survivor. He remembered the warning to avoid the 5th floor and became increasingly curious about what lay there. Summoning his courage, he took to the stairs and decided he needed to find out what was happening on that floor. As he approached the door, tension rose. He prepared for the worst he might encounter on the other side. He wondered why the 5th floor was considered dangerous since it housed the president's office. Ultimately, he threw the paper away and chose to trust the other survivor's warning for now. Having seen no signs of life since the day before, he felt increasingly isolated. As time passed, the chances of finding an ally diminished, compelling him to act fast. He didn't want to miss another opportunity and decided to search for survivors on the other floors. Looking at the blinds, he pondered how many floors he would need to check to find someone. Suddenly, a light flashed in the building across the street, and he realized it might be a signal. He rushed to the window and observed someone in the other building sending him a light signal. With a hopeful smile, he realized he had finally discovered another survivor. He glimpsed the person in the other building, but he couldn't decipher what they were trying to communicate. Confused, he attempted to respond, but the distance proved problematic. Using his phone, he tried to read the message the person was signaling. By zooming in with the camera, he managed to decipher the note and understood the message from the other side. It indicated that there were people on the 6th and 7th floors and invited him to join them. Excited, he celebrated the discovery of more survivors and prepared to make his way over there. With his golf club in hand, he steeled himself for another journey in the infested building. He approached the president's office and wondered what he might find inside. Upon entering the room, he was met with an unexpected and surprising scene. Instead of zombies, he found a private gym belonging to the company's president. Shocked, he realized the president had his own private gym in the office. The entrance wasn't blocked, and he wondered if the survivor had cleared the path. As he approached carefully, he identified himself as an employee from the 7th floor. Suddenly, he tripped over something and fell to the ground, knocking several objects off a table. He noticed that the door had been broken down and sensed something strange was going on inside. An unsettling feeling washed over him as he perceived a presence behind him. Turning, he found himself face to face with a frightening shadow. A zombie lunged at him from behind, but he managed to defend himself with the golf club just in time. The creature knocked him to the ground, and in a fierce struggle, he fought to rid himself of the monster with all his might. Just as it seemed he might be overwhelmed, he pushed the zombie away, buying himself a moment of time. The creature, however, came back at him ferociously. In a last-ditch effort, he kicked the zombie hard, sending it crashing to the other side of the room. With the monster down, he prepared to finish the creature off with his golf club. As the zombie lay on the floor, he gathered his strength for one final strike to neutralize the threat. He swung the golf club with all his might, finally managing to put an end to the horrific creature. Exhausted, he cried out with relief, recovering from the intense and dangerous confrontation. Getting up, he searched the room for supplies but found nothing useful. A status window appeared, and he lost 1 coin, leaving him confused about the situation. He began to wonder if the survivor from the other building had been lying about the allies. Suddenly, he heard a noise coming from a locker and approached to investigate. Relief washed over him when he realized the man hadn't lied, there really was a survivor here. Hopeful, he prepared to open the locker, eager to meet his new ally and fight for survival. He knocked on the door and called out, assuring the person inside that he didn't want to hurt anyone and just wanted to talk. He requested the person to identify themselves and mentioned that he had come to join the others. Introducing himself, he revealed that he was also an employee from the sales team. When there was no immediate response, he hesitated before deciding to break down the door and enter the room by force. Just as he prepared to act, a voice asked if he was assistant manager Song, catching him off guard. The door opened, and he saw his coworker Sona standing before him. Shock washed over him as he realized she had been hiding there the whole time, safe from the zombies. The two sat down to talk, and he learned that she had been there from the beginning. She explained that last night, someone had knocked urgently on the door asking for help. With a bad feeling, she had refused to open it, but the man broke the door down. She had hidden in the break room, and shortly after, the man had turned into a zombie. Scared by the noise, she had heard him groaning and dragging himself down the dark office hallway. Our hero realized that the zombie he had eliminated was the man who had attacked her. She asked if he had a weapon, and he pointed to the wooden spear in the corner. He noted that the weapon was similar to one the other survivor had used, stirring his curiosity. Sona explained that she had sharpened a mop handle with a utility knife, and it was quite useful. He noticed blood on the tip of the spear, confirming that she had faced zombies before. However, he hesitated, aware that she could also be a risk and liability in a world like this. As he prepared to leave, she called out to him, grabbing his golf club to help. She insisted that he would need a weapon and wanted to join him in the fight for survival. Holding on to his arm, she begged him not to leave her alone in the building. He apologized but reiterated that he couldn't risk his life for her at that moment. With tears in her eyes, she expressed how she wouldn't be able to survive on her own and pleaded for his help. He pulled away, apologizing again and reaffirming that he needed to go his own way to survive. In response, she revealed that she had practiced fencing and could be a useful ally in the fight. Surprised, he raised an eyebrow as she showed him a scar on her arm to prove her skill. She explained that she had cleared the entire 6th floor and could show him the bodies to prove her strength. With a determined look, she warned him that he would regret it if he left her behind. Impressed by her confidence, he began to reconsider his initial decision. She boasted about having won a silver medal at a national sports festival. With a handshake, they finally sealed their alliance and decided to fight together. She shared that she had searched the place and that all the clothes and food were there with them. When he asked about chargers for their devices, she explained that the satellite internet was still operational. Surprised, she realized they needed to collect every charger they could find. He inquired about how many zombies she had faced, and she replied that it had been a total of 8. Quickly, she found the chargers and stowed them in her backpack, ensuring they would have the resources they needed for the battles ahead. He felt a surge of happiness at having joined her, knowing his chances of survival had increased. She only found 2 chargers and carefully placed them in her backpack for their journey. With everything ready, she asked if they could go, but he requested a moment's pause. He glanced down the dark hallway, preparing for the next step of their plan. Noticing the marks on the door, he inquired about how it had come to be that way. She explained that the man who had broken down the door had tried to crush it with a desk. However, he realized that the marks weren't caused by a desk and decided to investigate the area carefully. On the desk, he discovered a caliper, surprising him with this unexpected find. A smile broke across his face as he picked up the tool, getting excited about finding a new weapon for their fight. He knew the metal tool was sturdy and wouldn't break easily. The young woman, however, regretted that the weapon was short. He dismissed the concern, and with a smile, she proposed an idea to improve the new weapon they had found. Taking the tool, she began working on her idea with great creativity. Using some tape, she attached the caliper to a long mop handle. When she showed him the new weapon, he was impressed by his ally's ingenuity. The new weapon could serve as both a spear and a grabber for picking things up. Grateful, he took the enhanced weapon, feeling much more secure in facing the zombies. With her food and his combined, they no longer had to worry about supplies. He then noticed a frying pan in her backpack and asked where she had gotten it. Embarrassed, she explained that she had brought it for trade but had ended up forgetting it in her bag. He took the frying pan, realizing it would be very useful for melting snow to drink water. Curious about her whereabouts earlier, she asked how he had known she was there. He explained about the message he received and shared the news of the survivor in the other building, which surprised her. Together, they prepared to find the other survivors and join forces against the zombies. He explained that he had received the message and showed her his phone to view the conversation. As she read the message, she wondered if it was safe to join up with strangers. They both agreed it was risky and acknowledged that trust was hard to come by in this situation. The young woman explained that she had chosen to team up with him because finding someone trustworthy was not easy. She expressed her unwillingness to take just anyone as a partner, preferring to fight alone rather than in bad company. He nodded in agreement, and they decided for now to avoid joining the group from the other building. She thanked him for considering her opinion and revealed that she believed Manager Choi was still alive. Surprised, he asked about the manager, and she recounted what had happened on the first day. She explained that the manager had been with her on the 6th floor but had run away and never returned. Scared, she had ignored his pleas for help and only later learned that he had managed to escape. He asked when the manager had left, and she responded that it had been on the night of the 2nd day. Deducing that the manager might be on the 3rd or 5th floor of the abandoned building, he expressed concern that the other survivors might try to team up with him if they didn't receive any response. He worried that if the manager and the others teamed up, they might come after them later. They agreed to set aside external factors and focus on their own survival. The good news was that they had one more coin and could purchase something from the item shop. He considered buying a hat to keep warm but recognized there were other priorities. His gaze fell on the young woman, and he noticed she was barefoot and likely cold. Deciding to buy her boots so she wouldn't freeze and become a burden, he pressed the purchase button and spent his coins. However, as he looked at the other options in the shop, he hesitated, feeling selfish for thinking only of his own size. Frustrated with the situation, he decided to choose later and fell asleep. Tired from the fighting and daily stress, he woke up the next day with the sunlight streaming in and prepared for another day of struggle. He asked the young woman how much battery she had left, and she checked her phone right away. Startled to see him awake, she listened as he complained about still not being used to the cold. She confirmed she had charged all the batteries except for the one he left behind yesterday. Her phone was at 22% battery, and they needed to conserve power. Remembering there was a solar generator on the rooftop, she asked if he had checked it. Surprised, he inquired if such a thing existed in the building, and she confirmed that it did. She explained that she had been in charge of the project, and although the generator was initially installed on the rooftop, the project had been cancelled due to a malfunction. However, she reassured him that the generator was still operational and that the malfunction posed no safety issue with the equipment. Curious, he asked if she knew how to operate it, and she affirmed that she could get it running. Excited by the news, he decided they should go to the rooftop to check the solar generator out. Together, they struggled with the rooftop door, which was stuck shut due to snow piling up outside. With great effort, they managed to open the door and stepped out onto the snow-covered rooftop. Exhausted, they complained about how difficult it was to open a simple door with so much snow blocking it. He looked up at the top of the building and questioned if the generator was truly up there. She confirmed it, and they readied themselves to climb and try to turn on the solar generator. He found a temporary ladder and prepared to ascend to the rooftop. When he attempted to pull the ladder down, he discovered it was frozen and wouldn't budge. They decided to climb and he asked her if she could make it to the roof. The young woman offered to go up if he could help her reach the top safely. He agreed and got ready to give her a boost. With his hands on her feet, he prepared to lift her up. With a strong jump, she managed to reach the top and held on tightly so she wouldn't fall. She celebrated her success and then began to search for the solar generator. He watched, impressed by her agility as she moved lightly and with ease across the rooftop. She soon found the generator, only to discover it was covered in snow in a corner of the roof. With a smile, she confirmed that she had found it and prepared to take it apart. She explained that she would disassemble it and toss the pieces down for him to catch on the terrace. She threw down the first panel, and he caught it successfully without any trouble. The second panel followed closely behind, and he caught it just as easily. However, the last panel was the heaviest, and he struggled to catch it without dropping it. Once all the panels were safely on the ground, they prepared to install the solar generator. Exhausted from the effort, they shared their complaints about the hard work but felt relieved to have succeeded. She announced that the installation was complete and that they finally had a power source. Although she regretted that the snow would hinder its efficiency, he expressed concern about the clouds overhead. With the generator installed, they hoped it would provide enough power for their survival. She recalled that with strong sunlight, the generator used to charge to 50% in half a day, and with the weak sun, they hoped it could manage at least a little. The following day, they checked the phone and braced themselves for a disappointing result. The phone had only charged 8% in an entire day, and their frustration grew. Disappointed, they realized that all of yesterday's effort hadn't amounted to much. She lamented the situation, and he understood they couldn't do anything without the sun's help. Despite the disappointment, he voiced a new hope and an idea for them. He knew where they should go after leaving the office to ensure their survival. With a determined expression, he revealed that their destination was the company warehouse to gather essential supplies. She agreed with the suggestion, and together they prepared for their journey to the warehouse. The problem now was how to get to the warehouse, and he worried about the GPS and the phone's battery. To his surprise, the young woman assured him it was no problem, as she knew exactly how to get there. Confused, he stared at her, and she explained that the warehouse was near her house. She used to walk her dog in that area and knew the way by heart. Relieved, he celebrated their luck, feeling thankful to have her as an ally on the journey. He realized it had been a good decision to team up with her. She was a great partner. Turning to her, he called her name, preparing to ask an important question. She turned around and looked at him curiously, waiting to hear what he had to say. He asked her what her shoe size was, prompting a look of confusion on her face. With this information, he got ready to buy the boots for her from the item shop. He lied and said he had seen the boots and thought about getting them for her if they fit. She smiled and replied that her size was 230, thanking him for the kind gesture. Seeing her happiness relieved him, and she offered to go with him. However, he insisted he would go alone and asked her to wait there while he retrieved the boots. Once he bought the boots, she tried them on, and they fit her feet perfectly, like a glove. Suddenly, a status window appeared, informing him that a party had been formed between them. He discovered that any coins she earned would automatically become his. Now he realized that having more members in the party was a significant advantage for their survival. The young woman thanked him for the boots, and he concluded that he could increase the number of party members. She then inquired about the status window, and he wondered if there were other functions. Calling his name, she snapped him out of his distraction, expressing concern for him. He reassured her that he was merely a little dizzy from not eating well. He noticed she couldn't see the window, concluding that only he could access the system. They decided to eat something to feel better and plan their next move. On the 14th day, the water ran out, and he felt very thirsty and weak. He agreed that they needed to melt snow and prepared himself for the difficult task ahead. The young woman mentioned she would get papers and documents to help start a fire. They decided to make the fire on the terrace to avoid causing a fire inside the building. Once on the terrace, he voiced his concern that the smoke might attract looters hiding nearby. He knew that looters could be dangerous, often traveling in groups and committing crimes. He lit the fire with the lighter and focused on melting the snow to prepare drinking water. The fire caught, and they watched the flames with hope and relief in their eyes. As they warmed themselves by the fire, they felt the pleasant heat on their frozen bodies. The young woman felt revitalized with the warmth of the flames and smiled. Relieved, she placed the frying pan over the fire and started melting the snow. Finally, they had drinking water to quench their thirst and ensure their survival. As they drank the warm water, they felt refreshed and energized to keep going. Emotional from the warmth, he gave thanks for what he hadn't had in a long time. The young woman cried with joy, grateful to have found a little comfort amid their struggle. They sat by the fire, feeling happy that they hadn't given up the fight. They resolved to fight until the end and survive the zombie apocalypse together. On the morning of the 15th day, he woke up to the young woman urgently calling him. Startled, he got up, not immediately understanding what was happening. He asked what was wrong, and she covered him with a blanket to keep him warm. Pointing to the building across the street, she said the other survivors had sent a message. Surprised, he asked what the message said, and she looked at him with a worried expression. She revealed that the other survivors were coming to their building to meet up. Quickly, he got up, preparing for the arrival of the new allies. Tension filled the air as they readied themselves for the meeting with the other survivors. With their imminent arrival, they hoped the new allies would be trustworthy and strong. The message indicated they were coming to join their group.